This is Groove Talk with FrogE Style.
Welcome to another episode of Groove Talk, everybody. On this episode, I am joined by E.L.F. So why don't you just give the audience a little background information on yourself and the music project in general?
Okay. Well, my stage name or music name or artist name is E.L.F. But my real name is Emilie Feldberg. And I'm a 17-year-old musician from Calgary. Been pretty obsessed with music my whole life. Growing up, I spent a lot of time hiding in our little music room, just writing little ballads and writing little sonnets and little songs, and it kind of grew into something that was a little bit more important, where I would get inspired by things I saw around me in the world, mostly things that affected me a lot, which were a little bit political usually, and I channeled that into my music, and it's been a really great way to connect my activism with the thing I love the most in the world. Yeah, and other than music, I'm a regular high school student going to university next year. That's about it.
Okay, awesome. So how long have you been making music then?
Oh. Well, I started taking lessons. My mom put me in lessons when I was like 5 years old. 5 years old, I was in piano lessons, and I had a lot of trouble sticking to the notes on the page, which is a pretty common thing for songwriters. And so I started making music on the piano, and they weren't even lyrics at the time. They weren't songs. They were just little musical moments that I would add in to distract from the notes on the page. So I guess it's been a developing process since I was 5 years old, but I didn't start seriously writing full songs and focusing on lyrics and composition until about beginning of high school, so that would be 2 years ago.
Okay. And is this something that you've kind of always wanted to do, or?
Yeah, I think so. I always pictured myself as a big musician. I didn't really imagine that it would come from my own inspiration. Sorry, I didn't always imagine that it would come from what I saw in the outside world, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. I expected to be a musician in a band and playing, I don't know, normal songs. I'm really happy with the way that I've been able to connect my passions with my music.
Yeah.
But I always kind of saw myself going down this path. Growing up, I wasn't really ever one of those kids that when asked, like, what do you want to do in life, I would answer, like, lawyer. I mean, that's kind of the answer right now, but I wanted to be a musician.
Yeah.
So I'm just glad that I'm working towards making that a reality instead of just a pipe dream.
Awesome. So Johnny Got His Gun is your first recording?
Yeah.
So I guess what was that process like? What was recording that song like for you?
It was really awesome. I worked with Mike Little he owns a studio called the Legion Lounge.
Okay. And
going in, I literally had no idea what I was in for. I brought this shell of a song to him through my piano teacher, Stony Dawn, had connected me with him. And I brought him this song, and he really liked it. He was not expecting to hear that from 5'4" little blonde 17-year-old. And so he was really shocked, and he got really, really passionate about it, and it motivated me, and we started we built the first thing that we did was we built the beat of the song by dragging YouTube videos from the internet of they're actually sound effects of guns being cocked and moved.
Okay.
Yeah, by soldiers, and so we built that track, and that was the first thing we did, and then that gave us a lot of momentum to finish the song, and then it was just a really cool process of stacking almost every weird thing we could find into this song. There's mellotron in there. There's an organ. There's only one vocal track though, which is kind of cool because it's like pretty raw vocals.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean the process was amazing. It was the first time I've ever done anything like that, and it was really awesome to work with people that took me seriously and cared about the music as much as I did, if not more. So it was an awesome process, and it opened my eyes to what actually goes into a song, all the layers to it, and how meticulous everything is. It was it really changed my perspective on music.
Okay. For the better, or?
Oh, definitely for the better. Yeah, and I mean, now I can't really... I guess there are some negative aspects to it, as in the way that I can never really be a chill music listener anymore because I'm constantly picking out the little details of a song, but definitely for the better, because I think I appreciate every piece of music that I listen to a lot more, because I know everything that went into there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So do you have maybe a favorite part of the recording process, or?
Well, I mean, there's a couple. Definitely building that rhythm track for sure is one of my favorite processes, but recording the vocal part was also super fun, and it was kind of entertaining because the people around me weren't coddling me in any way, which was great. I would record about 15 takes of one little section, which I also didn't know was what happened. Record like 15 takes, and then I'd step out and they'd be like, no, go back in. None of those were good. But it was really awesome to get to hear like the way they were all layered together, and just have a group of people there that were being really honest about the art and the music that was being put together. So yeah, those are some highlights. And I loved when Mike was the one that played the mellotron for that track, and so mellotron is, I can barely explain it. It's like a weird instrument from the 60s with a whole bunch of different like recorded sounds and different keys on it.
Okay.
So there's like operatic voices, there's like an organ. So weird. But watching Mike play that was just mind-blowing. It was unlike anything I've ever seen. It was like seeing someone play an instrument from outer space and master it. It was super cool.
Yeah, it sounds like honestly, I've never heard of a mellotron
I know.
before. So.
Neither had I. He pulled out this thing and I was like, what is going on?
Oh, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. So I guess the inspiration for Johnny Got His Gun, where did that come from?
Well, originally, I wrote the bridge. There's a lyric that says, I'm never gonna love anyone like I loved you, feel the pulse. And that section comes from after the Pulse shooting in Orlando.
Okay.
And I wrote that part, and then just the hook, like the bang bang section. I wrote those two parts after that shooting, and then I just remember being too emotional to finish it. I had sat down at the piano because I needed to get out some frustration at this horrible event that had happened, and I wrote those two little sections, and then I was like, no, I can't finish this right now, and I kind of just left it for a bit. And it wasn't until another shooting happened. Was it Columbine? No, my God, no, it was Parkland.
Okay.
It wasn't until Parkland that I finished this song. In Vegas, actually. It was a combination of those huge mass shootings in America that just fueled my rage. And I remembered that I had wrote that before when I was heartbroken. So the inspirations were kind of from different events, but they all came from the same really raw emotions that I felt towards these horrible acts of violence in a neighboring country. And then I just started noticing all the gun violence, even in Canada. It's all over. And the worst for me was all the kids posting, all the kids my age posting about survivor's guilt and how they felt after the shooting. And it was a scary moment for everyone. We have better gun laws than the United States, but there were kids in my high school that didn't show up to school for a couple of days because they were paranoid that somebody was going to walk into the halls with a gun. And it just started to feel very real. And the cool thing about the song is it's kind of listening to the process of my emotions. The sections that I wrote after the Pulse shooting are way more emotional and heartbroken, whereas the parts that I wrote after Vegas and Parkland are really angry. And it kind of highlights the way that the different events just hit me. And I thought it was important to get that out there in my little bubble with my specific ways to get my activism out there in some way, to try and help and make a difference without being in that country or even being around.
Yeah. So is it important to you that your music has a message then?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so important. I think it actually drives me nuts when there are people that have a big platform or a voice and they don't use it. I think we have a responsibility as people that live, like Canadians and North Americans, people that just live an easier lifestyle. We have a responsibility to say something and to try and create change for those that don't really have a voice or for those that are afraid, and just try and change the world a little bit. And my music always has a message, and it's not always angry and it's not always trying to create a change, but it's always something that's really important to me and something that I feel needs to be said. And I think it's pretty relevant to my generation in general. No matter what we're doing, we're all pretty opinionated growing up in a time like this. So yeah, I think it's always going to be a theme in my music that I'm saying something important.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great time to get your voice out there. It's never been more accessible, I feel, to have your voice heard, you know?
Yeah.
With music, with social media, with all those things, like, it's never been easier to, like, for example, this, you know, just get a couple microphones, record a conversation, put it on the internet. Your voice is being heard, right? Like, music, it's the same thing. It's never been more accessible to make music and get your voice out there. Would you say that you're maybe frustrated with the older generations?
I mean, in some ways yes, and in some ways no.
Okay.
Because they have allowed us, in a lot of ways, to speak up. I mean, I have to credit the older generations for letting a young woman like me have a voice. You know, I think that's a really, really, really awesome thing, that I get to state my opinion in public and get an education.
Yeah.
And in other ways, I'm incredibly frustrated because there are a lot of times where we just feel shut down, or like our voices aren't valued. And sure, we're allowed to put them out there, but are they being listened to? So there is a little bit of frustration there, especially with like global issues right now. Like climate change is all my generation ever talks about, and gun violence. It's like the thoughts and prayers thing. I mean, thank you for the thought, but are you gonna make any change? Because we can't even vote yet.
Yeah.
So there is some frustration there, but I think if we spend a little more time focusing our effort on making a difference and making change instead of just sitting here and fuming.
Yeah.
I think a lot more gets done.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely agree with you. It's like I'm older than you. I come from the generation after you. I'm like part of the millennial generation, you know, but I feel like almost like even my generation is almost slightly dismissed a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
It's dismissed as being kind of like entitled and lazy and like I have a lot of friends and I look around in my generation, I'm like, I don't see this. Like everybody's working so hard and they're just, even in my generation, I feel a little dismissed, which is kind of like...
No, and I think that millennials are actually more I think out of all even my generation, they're the most dismissed out of anyone, and I don't get the stereotypes, but it's one of the toughest generations to be a part of right now.
It's like, it's kind of, you see stuff and you're like, that doesn't apply to me at all. Like,
I don't know who they're looking at or who they're thinking of when they say all that stuff.
But it might just also be the natural progression of things. Like, as people get older, they kind of look towards the younger generation, and even, you know, like, even I've probably been responsible for it a little bit. Like, I look towards people who are younger than me, and I'm like, oh, those kids, you know? But it's good to hear. It's good to hear that people in your generation are taking interest in global issues, taking interest in climate change and gun violence and stuff like that. It's very refreshing to hear, honestly.
Yeah. Well, it's our future. I mean, it matters to us. Yeah. So, and we don't really have the privilege to not care. Yeah. Because these things are going to affect us directly, especially climate change. Yeah. And especially gun violence. Yeah. It's like, these things are really, they're coming into our lives and they are wreaking havoc. Yeah. So we don't have the option to be silent about it.
That's a very cool attitude to have, for sure. Do you maybe have, what are your inspirations, I guess, musically or otherwise? Some inspirations in your life.
Okay, well, I'll start with musically. Okay. For my sound, I mean, big inspirations to me. For my writing, it's a lot of Fleetwood Mac. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm absolutely obsessed with that band. And though I sound very different from them, I have spent a lot of time listening to Christine McVie's lyrics. And they've definitely helped me learn how to structure songs. But other than them, Alanis Morissette and Florence and the Machine. I'm a big fan of powerful female vocalists. Okay. I love a strong female voice, and I love listening to the way that they formulate a song. So, for musical inspirations, definitely those bands. And then there's also bands like The Clash, and REM. And I love listening to their music because they have really cool, like, underlying messages to all their songs that you have to listen really hard to pick out what they're saying, but they have an important message in a lot of their music. And then when you combine that with an awesome beat and, like, a crazy good song, it's amazing. So I love that kind of music, and I probably, other than Alanis Morissette and Florence and the Machine, I probably only listened to, like, 2 other artists that have released music since 1989. So, a lot of my musical inspiration comes from, like, classic and soft rock from the 70s and the 80s. Okay. I think it was an awesome time for originality and for really great guitar solos. So I'm a big fan of that kind of music. And then people that I take inspiration from are definitely how do I even formulate this? I really just get inspired by the people that are around me, like my parents and my sisters, and it's tiny things. Like someone standing up for me when I share an opinion, or someone encouraging me, or it's just little things like I watch someone who has had all the odds stacked against them, and then all of a sudden they post like a long thing on the internet, sharing their opinions, and I just am very inspired by the subtle subversive actions of others.
Okay.
Which is kind of a weird thing to say, but yeah, I'm just really inspired by normal people doing extraordinary things by just being themselves and speaking up.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, since you are a little bit younger, just I'm always curious about what are your thoughts about the accessibility of music, live music, for younger people?
Live music?
Yeah. Like, is it possible for you to see a lot of shows? Is that something that, no?
No. No, it's very hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard for me to go out and see shows. Most of them are 18 plus.
Okay.
And I think the harder part is booking shows.
Yeah.
For someone who's underage. And even then, in Calgary, I mean, there's a big chance that I'm not going to be allowed in. And even so, when bands do play in Calgary, even though I look for it, it's so hard to find. All over. I wish it was more accessible. Live music is the best, and watching bands play live is just the best. It's so good. But we don't have that many venues in Calgary that aren't bars.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for the younger generation to actually hear that, and then we're going to grow up thinking that there's no live music in our city, and then live music is just going to fade.
Fizzle out, yeah. Well, especially like the local bands and stuff.
Exactly.
Because most local bands, the venues that they can play in are bars, you know?
Yeah.
So it's really hard for local bands to reach a younger audience.
Exactly.
When there aren't those opportunities, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's always something that just a lot of bands do say that is the lack of accessibility to younger people for live music is ridiculous in this city for sure.
Yeah, it's virtually impossible
Yeah.
to see a show when you're underage.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a good question.
Yeah. Have you played a lot of shows then, or
No.
no?
I've performed my whole life.
Yeah.
Recitals and barbecues and little things like, but I've only ever had one show,
Okay.
and I did it like fundraiser style, so I could raise enough money to record my song.
Yeah.
And that's the only time I've ever really played a show, but it is virtually impossible to book a show in Calgary when you're underage.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I've performed so much growing up, so when I did play my show, it felt very natural. But it's hard to kind of develop a varied set or build up an audience in person instead of online.
Yeah.
When it's so limited.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess when did you decide to take music seriously? Like, obviously the fact that you're here, it means there was some sort of turning point where you decided to kind of make that a thing. So what made you decide to do that?
Well, that was a little bit more of external pressure than internal pressure. Good external pressure.
Yeah.
My piano teacher, who is in many a band, Stephanie Dawn, she's a recorded artist, and she's a very successful musician. And she's been kind of my guide throughout my music career, I guess. And she was one of the people where around sometime, I think it was around sometime last year, about a year and a half ago, actually, she just kind of looked at me and she said, "So, are you gonna put it all in, or are you just gonna stop here? I was like, what? But I mean, I guess she's right, because it kind of got to the point in my music where I was progressing for nothing, like just kind of staying on the same level and doing the same things over and over again. And she just kind of gave me that extra push that was like, so are you gonna go for it, or is this what you want to do? And it was less of a push towards go for it and more of a you gotta pick at some point. And I think and because it was even though I'm young, I had developed my own personal style, and I think she had wanted me to go somewhere with that instead of just kind of letting it stand where it was. So yeah, around sometime a year and a half ago, it was a complete mental switch, and I was like, okay, we are gonna do this.
Cool.
Yeah, and then I got into contact with Mike, and I did my fundraiser, and I just kind of put it into action. But it was less of my actions and more of a mentality switch of, okay, now we're gonna do this.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How do young people, like as you are in high school and stuff like that, how do you see young people viewing music today, I guess?
Good question. Well, so because of Spotify and Apple Music,
yeah,
we are definitely a generation that is able to listen to whatever we want, whenever we want, in the order that we want.
Yeah.
And you don't listen to a full CD when you're driving in the car. You don't put a record and go through all the songs in one. So recorded music is definitely accessible to us, which I think has made it so that we have a wide variety of music at our hands. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a good thing. I mean, I do think there are some albums that must be appreciated all in one go, but I think it makes us a lot more open to different music styles. But right now, I mean, the popular things that people are listening to are like rap and hip hop. Though that's not what I listen to, nobody's ever like ripping on anyone else for what they listen to. Yeah. Unless you're like an avid country music listener and someone really hates country music around you, which is actually probably the most common disagreement. You either love country or you hate country. Yeah. There's really no in between. Yeah. So I think we're just a lot more open to different styles of music because we have every type of music, like experimental techno music is, you can listen to that, and you can listen to folk rock, and you can listen to parody rap music. Mm-hmm. There's everything. So I think people are a lot more open to different genres. Yeah. And also listening to a lot of older music. It shocks me how many people are listening to music from the 60s all the way to the 90s lately. Yeah. I think sometimes people really miss listening to a beat that's created from a drum and not from bass. Yeah, yeah. Which is, I mean, that kind of music is great, but it's not like there's that much rock being put out these days. So you kind of have to go back in time to get that kind of sound, which is great because people are really exploring. Yeah, it's a big generation of explorers. Yeah.
Well, like you just commented on the Pink Floyd poster that I have in here, but like that's one of the bands that you have to listen to the album, you know? Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to just listen to one or two songs from Pink Floyd. You want to listen to the entire album. Yeah. Because,
in the series that they put it out.
Yeah. You want to listen to how they made that album because like a lot of thought went into that. Yeah. And I think that's one thing that's almost missing from today's music is people are focused on singles. People are focused on putting out one song because like of Spotify and stuff, lots of people listen to it like that. Not a lot of people listen to the whole album front to back anymore. And also to just another thing that kind of I've noticed is that a lot of people like almost a new genre of music should be like when people ask you what you listen to, so many people say everything but country.
Yeah, that's what my sister says. Yeah, it's I don't know what it is about country. I never particularly loved country, but I love folk.
Yeah.
But about the album and the singles thing,
Mm-hmm.
it is definitely frustrating. I dream to record a full-length album.
Mm-hmm.
Pray for the money. I would love to do that. I think it's one of the coolest ways that you can tell a story. And like, for example, even today, not just with older music, like Billie Eilish, she released her new album lately, and I listened to it, headphones in, lying in my bed, lights off.
Yeah.
All in a series in one go. And that's the way you should listen to her albums in particular, because when an artist does that, they spend like days just thinking about the order they're gonna put it in, and one of her songs ends in the intro to the next song, and they flow together, and they're both about the same event. I think they're both about the same event in her life, and it's I think full-length albums, it's like listening to a book or listening to a story, because you get to see the progression of their songwriting. You could be listening to their reaction to a year of events in their lives that they've translated into music and noises that are pleasing to our ears. And I think sorry, I just saw your record. I think it's worth it to listen to the way that they put it out, and it's a different effect than just listening to a single.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because of the accessibility of music today. Like, everybody has music on their phone, in their pocket. So music has almost become like a secondary thing. It's something that you listen to while you're doing other things.
Oh yeah.
You're never you're listening to music and you're washing the dishes, or you're cleaning, or you're driving or something. Oh, driving's maybe a bad example, but nobody's just sitting down and being like, I'm going to listen to music now, or very few people are, I feel. But I feel like that is how music is almost intended to be listened to and appreciated, at least. And it's cool that you can listen to music in all these other ways, but it takes away from it a little bit, I feel.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, okay, so a whole bunch of my friends will listen to music while they're studying, while they're doing homework, and that just absolutely blows my mind, because, first of all, I'm a very easily distracted person. I will see a shiny thing, like what happened earlier with your record. I will see a shiny thing in the corner of the room, and I will focus on that thing for 15 minutes, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking about Star Wars. I'm so easily distracted, so I cannot comprehend how someone can do one task and then be listening to music at the same time. And then, on top of that, I'm a musician, so when I'm listening to a song, it's like an experience, because you're picking out all the notes, and there's a harmony there, and I wonder what they did to create this track, and I wonder how many layers there were into this song. And I can't be a casual listener, and I want to dive deep into the song, so I can't understand how people can listen to music as a secondary thing. Good for you if you can. I wish I were in your shoes. But,
yeah.
And then people get angry at me. They're like, you're a musician. How are you not listening to music all the time? And I'm like, oh my god, that's not how it works. You don't understand. If we were playing music right now, I would be focused.
Yeah.
So I don't get it, but it's a huge generational thing. It's super accessible to us, and people always have one earphone in, and then the other they're listening to me talk, and I'm like, are you a robot of some sort? How are you doing this right now?
Yeah.
And they have all their music on their phone, and it's singles from different albums, and it's just a completely different thing than it used to be. So different.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I love that I can have music on my phone.
No, of course.
It's amazing, obviously, for when you do want to listen to music, but I can't talk to somebody if music is playing in my ears. Even if I have one thing in, if somebody's talking to me, I'm like, I have to pause this. Because, I saw, a meme on the internet or something. It was sorry, I had to restart the song because I wasn't appreciating it enough or something like that. So, I'm totally one of those people. And if I'm going to find a new artist, I, download the full album and, sometimes the discography, because I just, want to know. But I can't just listen to one song from somebody that I like. Yeah. What kind of does the future have in store for you?
Oh, good question.
That's a big question to ask a 17-year-old.
Yeah, I don't know. In 12 years, we might be done because of climate change, but other than that bleak fact, I'm getting back into the studio this year.
Okay.
I want to record more than one song.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to record more than one song because I'm very interested in doing a little EP with like what we were talking about earlier, with like the progression of how the songs go into each other, and kind of building, even if it's just a little album and that's all I can do right now, just building a story like that. And then I'm just gonna keep writing, and I teach music, so lately I've been getting pretty deep into the theory of music, so it's been a lot of exploring, and I do want to get back and do some recording, and all the songs that I have lined up right now are pretty relevant and pretty political, so I'm still focused on my activism, always, I think it's very important, and then, going to university. So that's what the future is in store. I'm going to try and, when I turn 18, I'm going to go online and I'm going to book all the gigs that I can't get right now. All of them.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
Can't wait for November.
So are you open to collaboration in future, or is it something that you see yourself doing as more of a solo thing?
No, I'm super open to collaboration.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I think this would be so much more of an experience if you have somewhere there along this, like people there along with you. Even collaborating with like my producer and my publicist is like so much more fun. Like there's someone on your team. And I love that feeling, and I love learning from other people and just getting to like know what someone else's passions are and what they've learned, and then just throwing that together and making your own little smoothie of musical genius. So I love collaborations, and I look forward to the chances I might get in the future to do so. Yeah.
Cool. You said that you teach music. Has that had an effect on your music playing? Yeah, I mean, it kind of threw me into high gear. I mean, there was this point that I was subbing in for my music teacher, and I was teaching this one kid, and he played this one song, and I went, oh my gosh, this 14-year-old might be better at me. Might be better than me at this. But, I mean, it was just an insecure day, but it has been quite the eye-opener to how much teaching actually teaches you. And I know that sounds cheesy, but it's actually in the way where I get asked a question and I go, oh, I guess I kind of always just took that for granted. Now I have to figure out why, like minor chords. And then I had to figure out, oh, they come from natural minor scales instead of just things that I memorized and knew. So not only has it like taught me a lot more, not taught me, I guess, I mean, reminded me of a lot of things that I learned when I was growing up, like how I learned them and how I kind of fell in love with music, but it's also allowed me to I don't know to just communicate with younger people, like I'm a young people, but with like kids, and just try to get them to love music as much as I do, and it is so rewarding when they come back after a week and they actually practice the song that you gave them because they wanted to. Yeah. And it's nice to know that music is always going to be relevant to people's lives, and that there are always going to be kids that are taking piano lessons. So it's just super rewarding to get to bring music into other people's lives and to get paid to do the thing that I love doing. Yeah. I'm curious, how do you find new music then? What's the best way for you to find new music?
I mean, I might not be the best example.
Yeah.
Because I find... Actually, no. I know exactly how I find new music. I listen to 2 radio channels in Calgary.
Okay.
103.1 and 107.3. Both of them are 70s, 80s, and more. So that's how I get new music.
Yeah.
I guess it's not exactly new music, but
Yeah.
so I might be one of those very few people of my age that still listen to the radio. There's no aux cord in my car, so when my friends pile into my car and they're like, I get aux, I'm like, joke's on you. We're listening to Billy Joel today. So that's how I get new music, and then I'll put it on my phone for when I want to listen to my headphones when I'm lying in my bed or, taking a walk.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time I get new music from there, and then other times there are particular artists that I just follow, and that I always stay updated on, which are usually ones I mentioned before. So like Marina and the Diamonds just came out with new music, and Billie Eilish did too, and because I follow them on social media,
Okay.
kind of get that updated. Whenever Florence and the Machine releases a new album, I know immediately, and that kind of thing. And then on social media too, like Instagram has started advertising for music, so I get a lot of those things. And then a lot of my friends are musicians, so I listen to their music.
Oh, cool.
But mostly it's from the radio and from social media. And social media is great for getting music out there.
Mm-hmm.
For some people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just given a lot of people a platform that you didn't used to have.
Yeah.
Which is a huge bonus to social media.
Yeah, I would, there's a lot of downsides to social media, I would say, but there's also a lot of upsides too.
Oh, yeah. No. And I think it's a lot easier to see the upsides when you grew up with social media.
Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah.
Again, I'm in this kind of weird position
Yeah.
where it's like half my life there's no social media, and then for the later half of my life.
Then MySpace came in.
Yeah, exactly. Or I didn't even have MySpace, it was Nexopia. So,
oh my gosh.
yeah, but I didn't have a Facebook account until I was in grade 11 or 12.
Yeah.
So social media wasn't a part of my life until then. But this podcast wouldn't exist if social media wasn't a thing,
Exactly,
So it's just, again, like you said, it's giving a lot of people a voice that they might not otherwise have. And it's helping people feel like they're being heard, I feel.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
Yeah.
And though there are, obvious downsides to everyone getting to share their voices with a certain amount of anonymity,
Yeah.
I feel like for my generation growing up with it, it's kind of allowed a lot of us to learn about things we wouldn't know about and the experiences of others and hear others' voices and share others' voices from all over the world that a lot of people didn't get.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of built up a little bit more of a community of tolerance and understanding and diversity, which is cool. Grew up with internet friends from I had one from India and one from southern United States, and we were all just chatting. So it was kind of a weird way to grow up, but we were the first generation to do it. So
yeah,
it's cool, but there are obvious downsides, but obvious upsides too.
Yeah.
And I think that music is one of the upsides of social media.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, it's connected people in a way that has never been before. No, you've never been able to chat with somebody in India or see what's going on in the lives of people in China, and it's a lot of upsides and a lot of downsides because that causes also a lot of kind of stress on you because you only see the bad sides of the world almost, you see all the bad things that are happening in the world and stuff like that. But yeah. So have you received a lot of support from your friends and family and stuff like that for your music?
Yes, they are the best. I am a very, very lucky human. I have the most supportive family. My parents are both lawyers, and a lot of my friends were actually very shocked to see that. My dad always told me growing up, I just want you to do what makes you happy. So it was never a question of picking a career that is safe, but always just doing what made me happy. So I have a very supportive family, and they're also the reason why I'm so passionate and outspoken. I was always given a voice. I was encouraged to have an opinion as a kid. So when I showed them my song and I came out with my song, it was all like, okay, I mean, we have to do this. Like, how are we gonna do this? Let's make sure we're doing it right. And then my friends are just the best people. Everyone has been really supportive of my message and the person that I am. And obviously, I mean, there's those few private school boys that have commented things on Instagram, but I have been met with so much, even not just from my friends, but from my community. At my school, there are people that I didn't even know come up to me and say, hey, I loved your song, like, thank you for saying that, or commenting on my Instagram or Snapchatting me and saying, like, hey, can one person that I met briefly who lives in Edmonton asked me if she could use my song as the opening in her play that she was doing at school.
Oh, wow, cool.
Just because she was doing it about teen suicide, and it was one of the characters uses a gun. And I've been met with a lot of support, and it's nice to see that there's a lot of people that not only care about me, but care about my message and what I want to put out there. So it's been great to have that kind of community. So lucky to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. What kind of issues do you plan on tackling in future songs?
Ooh. I have quite a few lined up.
Yeah.
Right now at the top of the list, I have 4 songs that I want to put out. One of them is actually a love song because I am just a 17-year-old teenager and I do have feelings.
Yeah.
And I would like to put that out there because it means a lot to me and it's still part of who I am, and I think it's a great song. The other one is about the Me Too movement and sexual assault. It's called Touched, and I'm really hoping to record that one soon. Yeah, it was heartbreaking to write it, but I don't ever think about what I'm gonna write.
Yeah.
It just kind of happens, and I'm thinking about something one day, and then I get a lyric in my head, and then it just builds around that. And then another one of them was a song I wrote when I was trying to explain the way I feel when I'm going through a depressive state. As a person, I'm not I don't, a lot of people my age aren't ashamed to admit that we do fight mental illnesses. So I wanted to write a song that was just kind of, it just kind of describes the way that I feel when battling internal struggles. And I thought it was really important to put that out there, and I really want to put that out there because I know that there are so many other people that are dealing with the same things, and I want it to be a song that's kind of like, you are not the only one. There are so many of us that are struggling, and we're doing such a good job of this lately. I feel like in the past, even in the past 2 years, society in general, Western society, has taken huge strides in speaking up about mental illness, and I think that is so good. It's awesome. It was barely talked about 5 years ago, and now there's so many programs, and we're still not there yet. There's still a lot of stigma, especially with men, but it's getting there. And then the last song that I want to record is about it's about war.
Okay.
Just general. It's a hippie song about how I feel about war.
Yeah.
So yeah, those kinds of things I tackle, and I'm currently writing one about the environment. But it's never anything. I'm not oh, this is a relevant issue today, I'm gonna write a song about it.
Yeah.
It's always just oh my god, this is really getting me down.
Yeah.
I want to get my feelings out.
Yeah.
And then if it sucks, it sucks. I'm not gonna release it. But there's no one ever that has come up to me and been like, hey, you should write a song about the gender wage gap. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, good idea. And then I do it. Like, it's always just something that's inspiring me in that moment, and then I'll go for it.
Cool.
But
So it's basically just stuff that you are passionate about.
exactly.
And it's music is your medium, essentially.
Exactly.
So, okay.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah, but I definitely agree with you about the mental illness thing. Is it's become so destigmatized. People speak out about it now. Like, again, even just this podcast is the amount of people that I've talked to who come through here, musicians especially, who are just like, yes, I struggle with depression, or I struggle with anxiety, or like these are some of the issues that I struggle with, and this is my medium to get it out there. It's really refreshing to see. And I think that it creates a community where people aren't afraid to kind of speak up about how they're feeling and get that support when they need it.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty important topic for sure.
Oh, no, I completely agree. And I think growing up in a community, like, knowing a whole bunch of musicians, artists in particular, I think, struggle a lot with mental illness.
Yeah.
And I think it's because a lot of times people that do have chronic mental illnesses search for an outlet, and then that a lot of the time takes form in art. And I think that's a lot what music was for me. I grew up with anxiety, and I have panic disorder, and my favorite one is my ADHD. But I used to be really, like, afraid to admit those things, and it took me a long time to even accept myself that I might have those things. I would always say in my head, like, oh, no, that's not real. But now that I know I have that, when I'm having a particularly anxious day, instead of just freaking out about it, I know, okay, anxiety, how do I combat this? Music.
Yeah.
And it's great to have that, and I think that's what a lot of artists do. And it's nice now to be able to speak about it, and I know that the more people that do talk about it as though it was a broken leg or as though it was a cold that they had, it's going to make it a lot easier for future generations to get the help that they need.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the coolest quotes I heard about mental illness was like, you wouldn't expect someone with a broken leg to run a marathon, so why do we expect people with mental illness to, just be fine in society? Yeah. Like, there is some sort of treatment that needs to happen, or just understanding at least. So, are there just kind of any final things that you want to say before we close this out?
Thank you for giving me a platform, giving me a voice. And I think that you do some great work, and I'm glad to get my message out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you very, very much for being on the podcast. I appreciate it. I will have any relevant links in the episode notes for anybody who wants to find you on social media or anything like that, and they'll also be able to find your music.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Are you okay with living a life in fear? Serve and protect doesn't apply here. And if you drink from the same glass that you pour from, who have you become? So easy to sell for cheap, so easy to silence what you call free speech. And if you find that you're preaching to the choir, I'm never gonna love anyone like I love you. I'm never gonna love anyone like I love you. I'm never gonna love anyone like I love you. Johnny got his gun and he wants to shoot it again. America, wake up. America, it's not over yet. Johnny got his gun and he wants to abuse it again. America, wake up. America, this is not the end.
If you liked this episode of the podcast, why not leave a review? You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. For up-to-date information on the podcast, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You can find us at FrogE Style Productions. That's Frog, the letter E, Style Productions. For more ways to support the show, visit fsproductions.ca.